We are recording. So this is the second part of the lecture for CIT 251, lesson 3, topic 3, pen testing. Last class we talked about kind of before the actual efforts, this contract, the legalities, the scope. We talked about gray boxing versus black boxing versus white boxing, or double blind versus tandem. And we're going to get into actual methodology this today. So we have a lot to cover. I do expect a lot of back and forth. This is interesting stuff, and hopefully you find it interesting. And if you have a question, feel free to speak up and ask. All right, I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to share my Chrome, and we're going to go into lesson 3, topic 3. And we're gonna have, there's the first part, I should say part 1. Here are the slides we'll be doing, pay to be sneaky. And let me put that to the side. Hit present. All right. I think we ended on the second Jack Handy, or Jack Hackey, John Hackey, that's his name. Again, so we talked about the report and payment. Remember, security is not a process, it's a product, or is a security is a process, not a product. What that's referring to is the fact that in IT InfoSec, InfoSec is a never-ending process, right? If you stop doing that process, things will become less secure. Okay, it's constant maintenance, constant gardener, right? You have to always be concerned about it, right? That's what they mean by security is a process. It's not a product. You can't just buy InfoSec out of a box, right? You can't just buy, okay, cool, it's our InfoSec box. Just pop it out, put it into the system, and give it an IP address, and we're up and running, right? That's not how it works, right? However, security is a process and a product, right? There are certain products, security products, you can buy. So, all right, let's talk about methodologies.
You can buy an InfoSec hammer.
I'm sorry, what?
You can buy an InfoSec hammer.
InfoSec hammer. Best way to secure something is to smash it in a million little pieces.
Yep.
Methodologies. We're gonna have a lot of concentric circles. Okay, not to turn this into season 1 of True Detective, right? We're gonna have lots of circles inside circles, or a lot of processes within processes. Okay, as such, these slides are kind of arranged that way. If you notice up here on the top, it says chunky. Come on, there you go. If you see up here at top, it says investigations. Over here it's gonna say invasions, and then and we're gonna end up informing, right? On top of that, with methodologies, I have induction as one way, as the first step of a methodology, or you can call it recon, which is what I prefer. Now, I tend to tie it into military thinking, but you don't have to do that. Or you call it open source intelligence, which is actually a vocabulary word. Okay, OS int, which is in other words, we'll get to that. The definition of open source intelligence essentially is you're taking advantage of what's publicly available, right? And then you have, or you can call it passive information gathering, right? They have lots of different phrases, different ways to do it. So I went back and forth on this. Should I keep it simple and just have only one thing to do? Like, should I just call it induction, and the next one is called inquest, and then after that, intervention, right? Should we just follow that first methodology and only list that? But then, I'm not in love with that system. I like this system better. I like the recon, enforce, and then revest, and then report. That's my favorite way to remember the methodology, right? But I'm also be cheating you out of potential knowledge of certain phrases, right? And I couldn't settle on a certain phrase anyway. Just because I like recon doesn't mean you should like recon, right? So I ended up keeping them keeping every way I know of it's referred to. Okay, I hope that doesn't cause too much confusion, but I hope you find that useful information. All right. So as long as they cannot detect your efforts, this is what we're talking about in this realm of methodology. Okay. Now, again, I call it investigations up here because I think the best way to think about this is detectives, you know, particularly TV detectives, right? Famously, TV detectives all have their different styles. We have Columbo on one end, and then the flip side of that is like Sherlock Holmes, right? Columbo just kind of comes in as this blue collar slob. He tries to make you think I'm an idiot. Oh, he's always complimenting you. Oh, you're so smart, right? He compliments the people he's investigating. He's like, I'm a dummy, right? He's playing it low. He's doing a little social engineering, right? As compared to Sherlock Holmes, which is also social engineering, but he comes at I'm going to outsmart you and let you know that I'm smarter, right? There's different ways to conduct your investigation, okay? And there's no perfect way. It's what works. It's between you and the target. Some targets, some methodologies will work better than other targets. Certainly for investigation, investigators, certain methodologies will work better than other methodologies, right? So. All right, so the first one we got listed here is passive information gathering, open source intelligence, recon, true recon. Research is another term I should have put in here, sorry, induction. All of these is what they're referring to as passive, right? I'm not going out asking questions. I'm not showing my face. I'm not applying to the company. I'm not, all I'm doing is I'm going to look on the internet, all right? I'm going to look at articles. I'm going to read your web page. Okay. Yeah, I'm requesting information from your web page, but I can hide my IP address, right? And no one looks at their web page and looks at every single hit they got every day to see what IP hit them up, right? I have some websites here listed. These are all different methodologies that people had talked about. This one's quite interesting, which I just learned about. It looks cool. It kind of looks cool more than it is. Case in point, here you go. This is their all their different tools. Let's just click on the very first one, username, which is probably the most popular one. We have username search engines. So again, if I click on that, I'll actually get some links. These are all different websites that some are pay, some are not pay, right? T indicates a tool that must be installed and run locally. But again, these are all tools. This again, what this does is this is going in public records, stuff that's known. Okay, I don't think any of this stuff uses darknet all that much, right? You'd probably have to pay for that. But this is all. These are just quick little tools that you can use. Again, this is tedious work. It is tedious. It's not as sexy as the TV, right? You don't just click one button and you know the person's username and password, or even their username, right? You go through and you find usernames. I could pick on particular people. I'll pick on myself, right? So there you go. These are all the various sites at eBob's World. Lovely. Boy. Well, that's old. So I clicked check username. It's spinning. I guess it's just taking some time. So, but again, these are all just tools. What you get back for names and what you get back for hits is it actually working?
What if you click the actual website it's for? Like, what if you click YouTube?
Clicked what? What? I'm sorry. Clicked what?
What if you click the YouTube icon?
Oh, I see. No, nothing. It's not. They're not links. I don't know. This doesn't seem to be working. Maybe it doesn't like my version of it. We'll go to a different one. Again, this is all going to be very time consuming, right? I'll click on that. Let's see what we got here. No, thank you. Do I have to? I probably have to. Is my internet slow? There you go. Hey, there you go. Found me on TripAdvisor. Okay.
Oh, would you look at that?
Yep, there you go. So now, again, this is all data, right? This is data that you can use. It found this username. Now, is that necessarily me? I don't even know, to be honest. Probably is. View profile.
Real quick, I just tried that username website as well too, and nothing loaded, but they had a small like hyperlink in the upper part of the webpage that said, "Hey, go to our new webpage to check your username." So maybe that link is that site's deprecated.
I see. Okay. Well, so this JJ Alves is not me. They're based out of CE. Huh. I'm trying to think of where that would be, but anyway, and they're back in 2013. So that's not me. So anyway, it's tedious, but this is all right. You're not going to get caught doing it. You're taking advantage of public knowledge right there, right? Along that same round, there's this Shodan IO, which is primarily built to be a search engine for publicly known Internet of Things. So it's a giant database of people's TVs and cameras that are known about, right? So here's some webcams. They supposedly have 11,000 webcams that you can look through. Here's some ones in China. There you go, Christian. Anyway, so with their IP addresses. So these things have public IP addresses, and they are technically webcams. So here's the information. It's part of the advertising. Some advertising company. They might mean it to be. Here are the ports that are open. So Telnet's open, 815566. Anyway, so which is of course Telnet. Anyway, there you go. So there's a search database for that. You can also use Google Dorking, which is ways you can. So like here's a database of all the different Google Dork search queries. When you do Google Dorking, what you're doing is you're using Google to find information people didn't realize was on Google. Okay. So here you go. Here's someone that came up with a files containing juicy info from Alexandros Papas. So if I copy and paste this, they might even have a link for me. I don't know, So if I copy this and I put that into Google, we are all right. Here you go. Here's some registry files, right? For some reason, some people's clearly these are Hive keys, Windows registry files are on the internet for whatever reason. Okay, so there you go. You can just use Google to find that information. That's Google Dorking, right? You can write your own. Scripts to try to figure out your target's information. I'm gonna make that truly full screen. There's also Maltego, which is a pay-for service, so there's not much to show there. I thought I'd just mention it. That links to their webpage, maltego.com. That's a pay-for service. So if you were a professional pen tester, that's something you might let them do the hard work, and they can maybe search the darknet a little bit more and do some more thorough research on the back end, and you can give them usernames and passwords, right? Again, this could all be very useful in social engineering if you're trying to figure out passwords of administrators, on potentially what they use for naming schemes, that kind of data. Okay, I'm trying to remember. Sorry. That's the basic one. Again, what you're doing, the first thing you want to do is your research, right? You're going to do your recon, your induction, open source intelligence, right? You're just going to learn as much. You're going to observe. You're going to in our lab, I'm going to have you go to the coffee shop that's next door to your target, right? And just so happens the administrator's there, right? You're going to do things that that information that's publicly available. You're not doing anything. All you're doing is you're observing. Okay, that's the first step. The second step is, any questions about that before I move on? Actually, I should. All right. So the next step is going to be inquest or recon enforce is what I would call it. Again, that's useless for most people. What's recon enforce mean? Well, in the military, that means I'm not just going to send one or two people to observe. I'm going to actually send ready for combat in particular. If I was an infantry unit, I'd send a whole squad. That way we can do a fighting retreat if we bump into anyone, or so we're reconning in force. Active information gathering, right? So we have passive information gathering. This is the active information gathering. Still, stealth is preferred, right? We're trying to be stealthy. We're reconning. We're not trying to give away our position, but we're going to be more aggressive. And because we're going to be more aggressive, we might give something away, right? So we have to keep that in mind. So we have Nmap. So we have, which we've hopefully all used at this point. SYN scans, decoys, missequencing, right? Nmap has tools to try to be a little bit cheaty, a little bit trickier. Here's an old cheat sheet. This actually goes back a while, but it's been good for me. So this is the public one. They said it's 1.1. Anyway, so feel free to download this and keep this in your records. But this is just a quick little cheat sheet, all the cool little things you can do in Nmap. Again, SYN scan is more effective than the TCP Connect scan. All these are, they're using sub protocols. Remember, SYN, synchronize, is a sub protocol of TCP, right? And what we can do with SYN is we can sit there and say, hey, let me start a connection. Let's just synchronize our connection. But we're not actually opening a connection. I'm just getting things ready, okay? But never follow up. But if it comes back with like, hey, are we synchronized? Yeah, we're synchronized. It's going to sit there, okay, I'm waiting for a connection, right? The connection never comes in. It just got the synchronization. But I now know what port is open because I did a synchronization on port 80 or port 23 or port 21 or whatever port I'm scanning, right? All the ports, 22, SSH, right? Whatever port I was scanning, that does TCP, by the way, it has to do TCP. I'm sitting there saying, hey, get ready to talk, and I never start the conversation. So what I'm hoping for is the server never records the information, or it never sets off an alarm on server saying, hey, I keep getting pounded by this IP address going port by port, telling me, hey, can I talk to you on Telnet? Sure, you can talk to me on Telnet. Hey, can you talk to me on web? Sure, I can talk. That might set off some kind of an alarm. That might set off some kind of intrusion detection software on the server. This might not help so much with a decent intrusion detection system on the network, because if it sees this type of traffic, it's like, whoa, why is this one IP sending out a bunch of synchronization, packets? So that might still set things up, but it's stealthier than what I normally would do with a port scanner. A port scanner would actually open up ports and say, hey, let's talk, right? This one just saying, hey, can we get ready to talk, right? And the server says, sure, I'm ready to talk. That's all we're doing, right? And that's hopefully enough not to set off any alarms. Again, we can use missequencing. I'm trying to see if it's here on the sneaky, quite slow. So these are pre-made settings they have. What they're going to do, and you can set this up manually, and you can set up your own script to do this. But this paranoid is sneaky. What they're going to do is they're going to run it slower. So it's a port scanner that runs slower. So it won't, hopefully IDS won't, alarm bells won't rise up that, hey, this IP address is like hitting every single other IP address and sending out port scan, going port by port every, 5 ports a second, right? It's not going to do that. It'll just do it eventually, right? It'll say, oh, I'm going, it's going to almost try to make it look like normal traffic. Oh, I'm going to port 80. No big deal. I'm going to make a SSH connection over here, right? And that's the other thing it's going to try to do is missequence things, right? It's not going to follow. I'm not going to go IP by IP, port by port, right? I'm going to go, well, we'll try this port 80 over here. Oh, we'll try port 22 over here, and we're going to do it. If we go paranoid, we'll do it very, very slowly, right? On hunting rabbits. So we're going to go very slowly, right? That's what these are pre-made for timing options, and hopefully for out of sequence as well. Anyway, so those are different things you can do. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else I really wanted to mention in here. But Nmap is a powerful, powerful tool. It doesn't look like much because it comes up in a command prompt, and it looks. And we've all used it, and it didn't look like much, but it's a fairly powerful tool, and it's used by professionals, right? It's used by legit professionals. So also has a scripting engine, which I've used in the past. I don't think I've had you guys use it. I had other people use it before in projects, but I don't think I have used it before, particularly look for eternal blue devices susceptible eternal blue attacks. Maybe that's something we can do in the lab. Anyway, what the scripting engine does with Nmap, it allows us to run a certain scan a certain way. So what, like for example, when I was to detect if a server was susceptible to eternal blue. It would go to see a server messenger block protocol. TCP 1344. I don't think that's right. Oh, 134, 135, and there's 3 ports that are used for SMB. Anyway, it's going to check to see if those ports are open, first and foremost. But then it's going to find out a version of operating system. It can do that by a simple request, especially through SMB. It says, oh, cool, you're talking SMB. Hey, just out of curiosity, what are you? And it'll come back and say, oh, I'm a Samba server. I'm running Samba. Okay, never mind. Right? It's gonna just never mind. End of conversation. No, that's not susceptible to eternal blue, right? But if it comes back and says, yeah, I'm a Windows 2012 server. Oh, really? What version number are you, right? And let's see what version of SMB are you running, right? This is information you can ask if you're starting an SMB conversation. That's part of the session exchange. Normally when workstations connect up to each other, as part of layer 6 and layer 5 operations, establishing the session, that's things we have. It's like, hey, by the way, just what version of operating system are you running? That way I know, so if I can adjust things on my end and use this version of socket, MS socket, instead of using that version, right? I'll know to use that. That way we can talk better, right? This is information we already exchanged. So we can set that up in the scripting engine in the script and say, okay, cool. Okay, so what we'll come back with what happened was with the script, it would come back and say, this machine is probably susceptible to eternal blue, or it might not be, or it's certainly not, right? And with the scripting engine, it could actually go as far as trying to put a file on SMB unauthorized. It would actually do a minor penetration test. Again, and that was a script you could just download from GitHub. It was a GitHub script, and I just did it. And when I executed Nmap, I did it with a dash S, I want to say. Whoops, that's someone's registry key. I can't remember exactly, but there was a switch, and I just told him to run it this script. And when it ran Nmap, it ran it with the script, and it was able to do this check for eternal blue. All right, that's Nmap scripting engine. And if I remember correctly, it can be either done in C, Bash, or Python, if I'm not mistaken. All right. We also, continuing on under Inquest or Recon Enforce, or active information gathering, whatever you prefer. Social engineering. All right. This is again, in our lab, for example, I specifically put it, we walk in the coffee shop that's near the place, and we see the Active Directory admin, and they have a very large cup of coffee that's half drunk. Well, if the cup of coffee is half drunk and it's very large, that means they've been there for a while. Well, if they've been there for a while, they're probably doing work, right? Because there's only so much time you get away with goofing off at a coffee shop, right? And you're not talking to anyone, and you got your laptop open, right? So again, that's a little bit of social engineering, right? Birthdays, like case in point, Mo was just talking about. He was trying to figure out my shadow file, so he was doing some social engineering. People like to use their birthdays. I never use my birthday, so it's not my birthday.
That was a clue.
It's a negative clue, but yeah, I never use my birthday in any of my passwords ever. I don't know why, but I just never do. Maybe because it's too easy to guess. What's that?
But that was something common, like most of the people use their birthdays or birth year
Yep.
As the prefix or suffix of their password. So that's why I was assuming.
Nope, and that's why. And I was just complimenting her. That is good social engineering, because a lot of people do. I don't. It's not that I'm smarter than the average person. It's just I never got in that habit, so I never do. It's funny because I just issued out my kids' laptops, and part of it was the discussion of, well, how are we going to mark these, because they're the exact same model, or 2 Chromebooks. How are we going to mark them? And someone was, oh, we'll just put I have a label maker. We'll put their name on the outside. I said, no, we're not going to do that, right? I just told the kids to go upstairs and find their favorite sticker they want to put on their laptop. And now, my daughter has a Shopkins, and my son has like some chocolate chip cookie or something. So the point is, someone looking across the way won't sit there and say, oh, and know now my daughter's name, right? Wouldn't know my son's name, right? Anyway, yeah, so again, that's kind of all social engineering, right? But this could go as far as doing some early probes of the business, going in and applying for a job, walking around, do some shoulder surfing. I always mispronounce that. Hopefully I did all right there. Just talking people up. becoming social friends on whatever, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, right? People can post stuff about work on Instagram. If they do that, I got some data, right? Might be helpful. So anyway, yeah, all that would be under the realm of social engineering stuff we talked about. So this is where we're going to start talking about vulnerability scanners, which is a little bit different than our doing time check real quick. Which are different than our Nmap. Nmap is just simply going to, and again, with a script, you can actually do a bit of a vulnerability or a vulnerability scan or even a pen test. But with OpenVAS, Nessus, and I thought these were all links. Sorry about that. You have to do your own Google search. Sorry. Or Metasploit, but Metasploit's going to be more aggressive actually. These are just going to look for vulnerabilities. So what these will do, OpenVAS and Nessus particularly, the free versions, it's in Kali, it's in most, we were talking about different distros earlier, some of the students and I. It's in most of your other, so we're talking about Parrot OS. I'm sure at least one of those, OpenVAS or Nessus, is in Parrot, the free version at least. But what these will do is they'll not only will they scan and look over the network or even a particular target. You tell it if you want to look over the entire subnet or you want to tell it to look over a certain IP. Same thing with Nmap. You could do that. Not only will it sit there and say what ports are open, but it will actually go in and try to figure out versions and figure out what vulnerabilities that device is available, or what vulnerabilities may be applicable to that type of device. Okay, based off of its operating system, based off its version of whatever protocol it's running, right? Based off of just its database of vulnerabilities and how successful they've been in the past, right? If it's scanning a Windows 7 box that's only service pack level 1, it's going to come back and say it's probably susceptible to Eternal Blue, right? Which is a SMB attack, right? So it'll give you clues of possible vulnerabilities. It won't execute those vulnerabilities. It will, at a lower level, it will. And by the way, these are fairly aggressive. Okay, this is truly reconning and force, right? This is truly IDS would pick up on this stuff, right? So this is you saying, I'm pretty sure there's no IDS. Let me go ahead and stick my butt up a little bit more, see if it gets shot off, right? Let me be a little bit more aggressive. Let me low crawl a little bit faster, right? And I'm going to see if I can get to my target a little bit faster, right? That's what you're doing here, okay? Package Wireshark, which we've again all used. There's also TCP dump, which we've used before for folks that had me in previous classes and did WPA2 handshake captures. We use TCP. That's what we used. One thing we could have used to record our network conversation. So it's it's a command line interface packet sniffer. Wireshark is also a packet sniffer. And now this should be the question, wait. It's packet sniffer. Isn't that passive? Yes and no. If you have a packet sniffer on their network and you're listening to conversations, now it'd be one thing if they're on a public Wi-Fi and you're listening in. You can argue that's more of a passive thing. I don't know why they'd be on an open Wi-Fi, but sure. If you just so happen to walk in and they're on an open Wi-Fi and they're at an airport or something. And,
excuse me, Professor.
Yes.
I just want to let you know for chapter 4, the assessment, 2 of the answers are the same on one of the matching. I looked over a million times, even on the definitions on the, where am I pointing? You can't see it.
All right, I'll take care of that after the lecture, Christian.
Okay, sorry, just wanted to let you know real quick.
Okay,
It's
thanks.
slightly different. Look closely.
So there is a difference.
I look closely, they're exact same thing.
What's the question again?
All right, we'll talk about this after. We'll talk about this after the lecture. We'll talk about this after the lecture. We'll talk about this after the lecture. I'll wrap this up soon, and then we'll talk about it right after that. Okay. So a packet sniffer can be extremely passive, but it'd be a weird situation. Most time, if you're doing packet sniffing, you're actually in their network, right? You're physically on their Wi-Fi, or well, I shouldn't say physically on their Wi-Fi, but you're connected to their Wi-Fi, or you've walked into place of operation and just plugged into a wired port, right? If that's the case, it is kind of a recon and force. You're doing something, right? So this is probably the better place to put Wireshark. Although in theory, if you're just simply walking to someone doing a conversation over network, open Wi-Fi network, and you're just sniffing their traffic, that would be 100% passive, as long as you didn't get caught, they didn't see your face or whatever, right? Again, so that's a little bit of a gray area, but that's why I put Wireshark and TCP dump in that. All right. All right. Any questions about Inquest or Recon and Force or active information gathering? All right. Let's talk about the big sexy, the sexy stuff that people like to see on the TV. This is what true hacking is for most. Now, keep in mind also, this is going to eat up, these two are going to eat up most of your time, right? The recon and force, or induction and inquest, right? That's going to eat up most of your time. Doing your research, crossing your T's, dotting your I's, right? That's going to take up a lot of time. That's you kind of just keep, edging around the perimeter and figuring out where the holes are, where you might want to attack, right? That's also why if you have a gray box a test, you might spend less time in it because you have the documentation. You're like, I would have figured this out on my own. If I took the time, I slowly kind of just kept investigating, I would have eventually figured this out. So that just cut to the chase and give me the gray box thing. But anyway, we talked about that last time. So that's going to eat up most of your time. That's the stuff that's not going to make the movies, right? Because it's not sexy. You're not punching keys and having screens pop up and code and matrix looking stuff popping up, right? It's not the sexy part. This is, right? And even then, it's not as sexy as it is in the movies, right? So this is also going to be, because it's in the movies, right? This is going to be also the most disappointing part, right? This is the part that it's more like coding, it's more like programming than it is like it is in the movies, right? You're just going to keep bashing your head and working on something, and maybe even like executing a script in Metasploit, and it just doesn't work until you might have to go in and modify it a little bit or something like that. And you keep bashing your head, why is this damn thing not working, right? So it can be very frustrating, but then you get the joy of when you actually finally get in. So you have the way I see it, again, this is completely my opinion, there are up to 4 vectors. You can then do a vulnerability exploitation. So again, poor code in the operating system or the application that allows me to either execute something I'm not supposed to execute or get to data I'm not supposed to see. We can do a privilege exploitation. Again, and you can combo attack this stuff, right? Privilege exploitation, where I gain privilege I'm not supposed to gain function or to get data. Again, if it just any way I can get privilege I'm not supposed to get privilege. Now, can you do both? Yes. There can be a vulnerability that allows you to do a privilege exploitation, right? It's a combo attack, right? I can also do a data redirect, where I can, a couple of different ways, as an aggressive, as an offensive means. If I do a denial of service, why would I do a denial of service on a pen test, right? Well, I might want to reduce a service so the system or the users might switch over to a compensating, less secure system or as an end game. In this lab I'm working on for this, I kind of have you do that a little bit. In the scenario, you're a pen tester, and you send some DAuth packets. I list what application actually allows you to do that. You send some DAuth packets, which is kind of a denial of service, right? All of a sudden, the Wi-Fi that this person was getting is not available, so it forces them to reconnect. Well, when they reconnect, I can do the WPA2 pre-shared key. I can capture the 5-way handshake, right, and then start cracking the MIC. So that's an example where doing a little mini DOS attack helped institute an unsecure thing, which is a 5-way handshake, which I can then capture and then try to crack. Okay, so that's an offensive way to use data redirects, right? I'm redirecting data. Think you're a Marvel superhero, right? I'm collecting data and I'm redirecting it in a way that's not supposed to be meant to do, but I'm doing it so you're using compensating control or perhaps even that's part of the end game, right? I do a DOS attack on your company, and you thought your company was was paying for a DOS system, denial of service, or a DDoS prevention system on the outside of your ISP. Well, let's test it. Let's put it to the test, right? I'll do it in off hours, but we'll try it. So that might be the end game as well. Lots of Marvel references. Well, that's weird. All right. I can tell I have a 5-year-old son, soon to be 6. All right. Data redirect. So we have spyware, mem dumps. Remember, and this is something I'm hoping to do in the lab as well. The memory, because Kerberos stick in older versions of Windows, Kerberos has the unencrypted password in memory, so we have to capture it in memory, which will be difficult, but we'll see what we can do. The memory is the workspace, right? It's the workspace of the operating system. RAM is. When I say memory here, I'm referring to RAM. So if we can get a looking glass into that RAM, that might be pretty useful, right? There we might get all kinds of good information. So that's where a mem dump might come in handy. And we'll certainly talk a lot about that when it comes to forensics as well. Spyware, if we get spyware installed in our target, it might have a keystroke logger, might have a web page logger, might have a password logger, right? All kinds of certificate logger every time it exchanges a certificate. Yeah, that'd be good. I can use that, right? And then eventually upload that information to a server. Usually it's in the cloud that I can grab later on. Okay, so you can get spyware to redirect information, or you can do a data in transit interception. So again, don't forget, data in transit can also be from transit to the hard drive to the memory. It can be data in transit, can be putting it just on the network. So if I'm on a server, I can do a man-in-the-middle attack on the information that gets put onto the network on the network card. Anyway, in a physical world, I can plug in a device that just simply reads the data going from the network card onto the network and and do a packet capture up to the internet, right? And that would be example of data transit interception. So the fourth way, we'll do. I don't think. All right. So let's just real quick. I should put this after. There's only 3 ways there. Oh, you know what? I did 4, and then I bumped it back down to 3 because you know me and my 3s. So there you go. All right, so there you go. The data redirect I ended up turning into 1. I said redirecting data in all different ways. Of course, you can. Again, I mentioned you can combo those all up, right? You can use a vulnerability to do a privilege exploit, or you could use a spyware to then get a password and do a privilege exploitation, a privilege. I said exploitation, but privilege escalation, right? So again, you could combo those up. However, that being said, simple works tends to be work, right? However, that being said, deep thoughts by Jack Hackey. Simplicity is genius. Unless it comes up against well-executed complexity, then simple is idiocy. But we're mostly too stupid to pull off complexity, so just keep it simple, stupid, or dummy. All right? So again, having a complex plan will be better than having a simple plan, assuming if you execute it perfectly, right? So if you're executing multiple vulnerabilities, and we're going to talk about pivots in a little bit, and we're going to talk about different things. If you have a complex plan and it's well executed, great, right? That's fantastic. If you have a simple plan, the chances of it coming off getting well executed is much higher. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to get across with this. Any questions about 3 vectors? When we're talking about 4 vectors, I never said 4 vectors. I don't even care if it's on video. 3 vectors. That was me changing my mind because I had 4 vectors, and then I said, "Oh, I'll turn it back into 3," and I forgot to change that over.
Oh, all right.
Any questions about the different vectors we can take? We're going to keep talking about exploitations, but these are the 3 main avenues. These are the roads that I think we could take. All right. So let's keep talking about intervention, revest, or exploit, or manipulate, whatever you want to call it. Of course, these vectors can be combined together. However, more vectors, more problems. That's what you can put in your, who was that? who's saying more money, more problems?
Mace.
Jay-Z, right? Yeah. Is that what you said, Adam? Jay-Z?
Mace.
Oh, was it Mace?
It's like, yeah, it was Puff Daddy and Mace, I think.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
it's like 98, 99, somewhere.
right. Okay. Wow. Yeah. All right. I'm dating myself too. All right. So more money, so more problems, with more vectors, more problems, more complexity. Right. Example: one could crack a password to get privilege to install backdoor that they could be used to scan for a new subnet for more potential targets. Okay. So what's this example down here? Offline zone. We have a YouTube here.
It's just there. It's a little different.
Okay, yeah, there you go. That's a little Easter egg. Sorry. That's where Jules says example. Again, dating myself. So what's an example of different ways we can revest or exploit or manipulate? Something we've all used in Security One. If you took Security One with me, Metasploit. It's a software package. It has a free version, it has a pay version. The beauty of Metasploit and the reason why it's still around is it's modular and the payloads are scripted, right? So Metasploit works on multiple levels. It will allow you to hit a vulnerability and as a payload in multiple ways. You can create a virus to execute a payload. You can simply just hit up a vulnerability if you have like, I keep picking on Eternal Blue, but I'm going to do it because it's there at the tip of my tongue. If you hit a server that has the Eternal Blue vulnerability, you can run Metasploit and it will execute an exploit on that vulnerability and then get you a shell, maybe get Metapurpur, however you want to pronounce it, up on the server. And then that will give you kind of a backdoor into the server that then you can use as a pivot point, which we'll talk a little bit around. Okay. So that's Metasploit, such as Metasploit we talked about. Password crackers would be another one. Again, offline versus online password cracking. Offline, we got something in our possession, a hash file, well, usually it is. Hopefully, it is a hash file. It could be an encrypted file as well. But something that's offline means I have it on a hard drive somewhere in storage or memory, really, because I'm going to load it into memory. And then I'm going to just keep guessing, right? And I can guess really quickly because it's all local. As compared to online, where I'm actually attacking it over the internet. I'm actually making login requests over the internet. Some servers will let you guess infinitely. That's fantastic. But it's going to take a lot longer time, right? Because you're going to have to just keep guessing, keep guessing, keep guessing, keep guessing, keep guessing, right? And that's a process. Setting that data off to guess on the server is a process where I have to send the data out over the internet, get the data back, find out it's a failure, go on to the next one, as compared to offline where it's all going to be done locally. So it's much, much, much faster. We've talked about rainbow tables versus dictionary attacks versus word lists. Again, a rainbow table is just going to have a predefined listing and then put brute force in there. Rainbow table is just going to be a giant table of already pre-guessed things with hashes already made. Dictionary, we're going to just use the dictionary. Have a big selection of just go right down the dictionary. It's kind of like a brute force of word lists. Okay, we're just going to go through the dictionary and just figure out every possible combination of words in the dictionary. 2 combinations, 3 combinations, 4 combinations, right? Just keep guessing, keep guessing, keep guessing. As compared to a word list is we're going to prioritize certain words, right? This stupid person uses the same word over and over again in their passwords, right? They just love putting window in their password. So I'm going to somehow work window 123, their initials, PPD, window 123, right? What I'm doing is I'm guessing, right? I'm going to create just a big giant list of guess, right? And that's where the social engineering comes in, right? Social engineering, I'm going to use a little bit of social engineering to generate that word list, right? I know this person tends to do passwords this way. I know this person tends to do passwords this way. This is their name. This is the wife's name. This is the kid's name. This is the kid's birthdays. All these different ways people tend to make passwords. We can use that against them and generate a word list, right? Now, the problem is it's a shot in the dark, right? So if you generate a ginormous word list, a 5 gigabit word list, and you're guessing, and it takes even a offline attack, and it takes you 3 weeks to get through that 5 gigabit list, and you got no hits, right? You've just wasted that time of A, generating that word list, and B, trying to use it, right? So we have John the Ripper. So different programs that use these different techniques. We have John the Ripper. Again, you can use word lists, you can use dictionary attacks. John the Ripper will eventually, phase 3 will fall back to brute force attacks. Hashcat as well. It was originally built just to do hashes, but now it does all kinds of different password cracking. It's quite popular, actually. I got to spend more time on it to get more familiar with it. Hydra, the reason why they call it Hydra is because it primarily is worried about doing online attacks, and it will try to spin up as many processes as the distant server can do to get guesses going. So Hydra can do things like take 3 guesses and then wait for 3 minutes, right? Why would you wait for 3 minutes? Because there's a 2-minute pause, a 2-minute kick out time. After you guess wrong 3 times, it kicks you out. 4 times, it kicks you out if you do it within a 3-minute span. So you put a 3-minute wait time after you do 3 guesses, and you wait for that 3 minutes are up. Then you guess 3 more times, right? You can program Hydra to do all that. Okay. Again, if you get passwords in memory, that's ideal. Usually, sometimes they're not encrypted. Most operating systems nowadays, however, just never do work with clear text passwords. They'll only work with the hashes. Windows, Linux, Mac. They create hashes of the password, and then when you type in your password at the login screen, it creates a hash and it compares the 2 hashes. It says, okay, only during the time of when you typed in the password and when it went into the processor to create and did go through memory as clear text when you initially log in. After that guess is recorded only as a hash. It never decrypts. It never takes the hash it stores of your password and converts it back to normal text, right? It's always going to be a hash. Okay, so passwords in memory and on the hard drive are usually are hashed. Burp Suite is another device. It's another application. It can scan. It's built for. It's built to it works 2 ways. I ended up not using Burp Suite because it's too much last semester, but 2 semesters ago we used it. Burp Suite is a very powerful piece of tool, but also, by the way, it has a free version and a pay-for version. It can scan a web server, and it uses a online attack way to do that. What it does, it'll just keep getting let's check for all these subfolders. Again, a web server's whole job is to provide things, right? So if I say to the web server, hey, can I go to, www.target.org/secret, right? Is there a secret folder? If there is a secret folder and it's available to the public, guess what? It will say, sure, you can go to that folder, right? Unless I don't have read permissions, then it's going to say it's not allowed. I'm sorry, that was my son wanting a login. Give me 5 more minutes, JJ. So anyway, so Burp Suite will just keep going through and asking, like, hey, do you have this folder? Hey, do you have this folder? Hey, do you have this web page? Do you have this web page? Index.htm, default.htm, login.htm, right? It's going to keep HTML, right? It's going to keep guessing at different passwords, right? That's one thing Burp Suite can do. So in a way, it's kind of like this, right? But also, it's not really a revest. It's really not an intervention, right? However, if you can, what you can also do is set up Burp Suite to be a proxy server. Make this thing go away. Stupid bar. Go away, bar. Go away, bar. So it can also have the target use it as a proxy. And as a proxy, it does a man-in-the-middle attack, right? It's able to look at the traffic, right, flow through it as a proxy, and then I can start kind of dissecting and reverse engineering how this website actually works. They have a JavaScript. Okay, cool, right? Okay, they use a redirect here to go to this different web page to do the authentication, and then it kicks back over to the splash screen, right? I'm able to kind of see a lot more of this information because I'm able to watch the conversation flow by. And what I'm able to do is change that, again, change the web server to use Burp Suite as a proxy, okay? So those are the 2 main functions, and that's where the intervention comes in, right, or the revest, because I'm taking that information and redirecting it and doing a man-in-the-middle attack. So that's why Burp Suite's listed there, all right? Any questions about that? Let's just get through this slide, and we'll stop with the Jack Candy because the next part is reports. So let's just talk about some other methodology points of orders. We have spear points, pivots, and lateral movements. So the whole point here, a good pen tester is that's what they're gonna do. Undetected, ideally, they're gonna penetrate. That's where I mean by spear point, right? I'm gonna find one server, one little chink in the armor, one little area I can kind of get in, right? A weakness, a weak point of the defenses, right? Once I get in, right? Once I'm in, okay, I might be in a really crappy server that's on a subnet that doesn't help me all that much. But what I can do is start pivoting and find another server or another methodology or another. I could do a ping sweep or to find some other avenue or a hole to try to get eventually. I might have to hop through multiple devices. I might, again, that spear point, and going back to social engineering, that spear point might be having the user click on a phishing attempt, right? Install malware. All right, so that's a pivot, right? Whenever I'm not where I want to go, but I'm in. I want to pivot off that platform. I'm in, but now I want to pivot off of that and now hit somewhere else. Okay, I'm going to hopscotch eventually to my target. That's a pivot. Okay, and sometimes that takes lateral movements. What do we mean by lateral movements? Well, again, okay, I'm in their wireless. Fantastic. So now I'm in their server. Wait, whoa. What do you mean you're in their server, right? So a lot of times you have lateral, or I'm in their DMZ. Okay, cool. You're in the DMZ. Our goal is to get to the server, which is on the inside network, and the server you're on doesn't have any holes going from the inside to the DMZ. So what it's going to take is a lateral movement. Now that you're in the DMZ and you're in the same subnet and you're past the firewall and you have a point of presence, you have a backdoor, you have a bot, you have some kind of software that allows you to a reverse TCP connection some way into that server. I can use that as a springboard to then look around that subnet. Hopefully you guys can see my hands. I don't know because I'm using my hands. Once I'm in, right, I can use that as a springboard. Here, I'm gonna bring up the whiteboard here to then break into other systems, right? I have, that was weird. Oh, because it's, yes. All right, wow, that's ginormous. I don't need that. Control Z. All right, let's try this. That's better. All right, so we have our server here in the DMZ. I'm in. I have other servers in the DMZ, right? And we have a firewall that goes here, right? And it goes here, okay? We'll say the firewall segments off their network, right? And now I have other servers, and this is my goal server, right? And this, unfortunately, this is the inside, right? I can get into the DMZ. I'm able to get through a hole they have in a firewall. There's a hole down here. I'll make it green. Come on. Can't go there directly. They have a green hole that allows me to get through as the attacker. So I'm coming in, right? I'll come in as orange. I'm coming in, and I got some kind of back door in here in this server installed. I used a vulnerability, and then a privilege exploitation. I'm able to run it. I'm able to auto start it. So when this thing reboots, I'm in this thing, right? And it didn't detect me in. But my eventual goal is this server over here on the inside, right? So what I can do is pivot and do a lateral movement. And now I don't have to worry about this firewall, right? Even though there's no hole to the outside world in this firewall, or even if they had a hole and it was to a fairly secure port, they might have a SSH port open or a telnet port or some other port open here that I can then just pivot around and get into this other server, right? And that server might have a hole, right? I don't know. I don't know until I look, right? Maybe it doesn't. Let's just say this server had the hole. Damn it, right? I'm in this server. I found an exploit. I got in this server. Well, I can't get into where I want to go. So let me lateral movement one more time over to this server. And I'll scan. I'm sitting here saying, okay, cool. Can I get to the place I eventually want to go? Yes, I got a hole. Great. Let me start doing that attack. Hopefully I get in here, right? Again, I might, this is what it's, this is me trying to break into a secure area. It's supposed to be difficult, right? Whatever port might be open here, it might be SQL, it might be, some database port. Maybe it doesn't have a whole lot of vulnerabilities. I'm in a whole lot of trouble. Maybe I can find another hole, right, to another server that I can then use and then break into here. This is what we mean by pivots. Like this would be a pivot, right? And lateral movements, right? When I'm able to penetrate one area and then pivot over to eventually get into another area, okay? Or I can do a lateral movement until I find a device that will allow me to do that pivot into another area. All right, does that make sense? All right, let me go through the buzzsaw and just talk about notes, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, let me go back up to my slides. That's what I want. All right, so spare points, pivots, and lateral movements. The buzzsaw, it's a repeating process, right? I did my recon, found their web server, might have a vulnerability. I recon enforce, I scan that, I see what operating system they have, right? I do a request, I find out what operating system they do, I get information about it, I revest it, I actually go in, I find an exploit, I execute the exploit, I get in, I'm not detected, I install a remote access tool, right? Now I repeat the process. I'm in their DMZ. Okay, cool. Let me recon enforce. Right? It's this repeating process, right? Before you take another step forward, you always want to look to make sure you're not tripping up, right? That you're not running into a trap, right? You're always re-looking. Okay, cool. Let me try this, right? There's patience, there's problem solving. Those are key components of being a good pen tester, right? Is patience, persistence, and puzzle solving. All right, notes all encompassing. So we want notes to be both copious. I want to know everything you did, but make it concise because we want to get through it quickly. For your own benefit and for the report, right? Can't always remember everything you did. The report needs to have this information, so it's a double whammy. Evidence is sometimes required. Be wary of storing and keeping classified data, okay? We talked about that in the previous lecture, but if you download someone's PII or you download a company's confidential data, that you got to be very wary of that, right? You might be opening up yourself to litigation if you're outside the scope of your contract or various other things, right? It's not fun. All right, one last thought with Jack Hackey, and then we'll call it a lecture. I'll open up for questions. Where does theft begin and borrowing end? If I ask you tell me a secret, then who's to blame? Isn't your password strengths your responsibility? All right, those are kind of silly. All right, any questions before I stop the lecture? And we'll talk about the assessment in a bit. All right, so I'm going to bring the video back up, and I'm going to stop the recording.